Welcome back to Pulse Radio, your sporting fix for the week. Sportitude is back. I am Roger Mottram. I am joined, of course, by Tom Daniel. Say hello.
Hello.
And we've got a fine show for you today. We're going to mix it up today. We haven't just got football for you. We've got some F1, we've got some cricket, and obviously we will have to stick to some football because otherwise we don't really know what we're talking about. But so F1, end of the season was on Sunday. And obviously it was a great performance for Valtteri Bottas. Tom, talk me through it.
I mean, to be fair, considering of what has actually been happening in F1, you've got to think it's nice to end it on Bottas winning it. Honestly, out of all the drivers, we're going to probably go into a little bit more detail about him in general, but I think he's been one of the best performers in this F1 season. And for him to actually finally, get that last victory in Abu Dhabi. He was pole. He said that he wanted to stay first. He wanted the pole position in the practice. He got it. He wanted the pole position in qualifying. He got it, and he smashed it. Absolutely smashed it. Maybe pressure was a little bit off him because Hamilton had already won, and Vettel wasn't really at his 100% as well. It seemed that it was definitely a celebration for Mercedes, really, and it made them They had already won the constructors. Hamilton had already won the drivers, so it was just nice to end it on someone different. And the future of F1 is Bottas. So
I do remember last year we were talking about who would replace Nico Rosberg when he actually left Mercedes, but it ended up, it was my prediction to be Bottas, and I was proved right, and I think we can all agree that he's had a successful first season.
Definitely. I think we discussed this last time and we were thinking, is Bottas, while he's he was the prime person to take over, with him being from the sister club anyway, would he really be of the calibre, of what a Mercedes driver should be? And we were all thinking maybe Raikkonen, maybe Verstappen could have come in, the two bigger names. We obviously knew Vettel wasn't going to go, but he's proved everybody wrong. He really has, and I think he's definitely been the third best driver in all this, when honestly I was expecting him to be fifth or sixth. I really expected Bottas to be the B man, but he definitely did, come into this and surprise a lot of people. Unlike I think a few of others, which came in with a big name and didn't perform.
Obviously, one of those that was expected a lot of this season is Max Verstappen. He's had a horrendous season, but he did sort of end on a couple of highs, back-to-back fifth-place finishes the last two races, but wasn't ideal for him. He said it was a boring race.
I think the issue with Verstappen is that last season, I think, me included, got a little carried away with it. I think we got carried away. We saw Max Verstappen and we thought, this is the guy who's going to be the future of F1. He's going to be the one who's going to take it by the horns, and he's going to change the sport and revolutionise the sport, with his aggressive style. I do think he did that. It definitely seems like a toned down Verstappen, though, this year. And I think that was partly to do with the car. I think you look at the Red Bull car compared to the Ferrari and the Mercedes, there was not a lot. There was not a lot between the Ferraris and Mercedes, but the Red Bull car was not. I'm not going to say horrendous, but compared to the quality of those two car brands, it was not up to standard, and I felt that definitely did hinder him. However, Ricciardo should not have finished above him. I think he's a better driver than Ricciardo, and the fact that Ricciardo finished fifth and Verstappen finished sixth overall has to come down as a disappointment for him.
Yeah, I think you're right. Obviously, Verstappen has now committed to the next 3 years at Red Bull. But the major talking point from Sunday's race in Abu Dhabi was, of course, that Daniel Ricciardo, as you mentioned, didn't manage to finish and was pipped to fourth place by Kimi Raikkonen by 5 points in the Drivers' Championship. I was
absolutely gutted, really, because you look at it now and, in reflection, you see Mercedes, Ferrari, which, to be fair, is, I think, what a lot of people expected. I actually expected Ferrari to win the Constructors' Championship because I thought with, them bringing in Bottas, I didn't think Bottas actually would do as good as he did, and I thought Vettel and Raikkonen are both, top drivers. Raikkonen didn't have the greatest seasons, and to be fair, he's probably lucky to have finished fourth. The Ferrari car had a lot of issues at the end of it, and it really was this whole Grand Prix was, the whole season in general was about endurance. The Mercedes car was the one which was the most stable, the strongest. I would say, in terms of which one was the quickest car, I would think that Ferrari actually was the quicker car. I thought it was the better car, but it wasn't the car which could withstand the amount of races which you have to take. And that definitely cost, certainly, Vettel. Raikkonen, on the other hand, I thought Ricciardo performed above expectations, a bit like Bottas, and he'd be extremely disappointed to have actually not finished that race. And it's another technical issue, really, from the Red Bull. Not really anything to do with the drivers, but a technical issue which has cost him fourth. And it's a big money. They get money for each place here, and it's cost them a little bit.
Obviously, I think at this stage last season, I'd have liked to have watched a little bit more F1 this season than I've managed to. But I think there was a lot more excitement with Rosberg announcing his retirement, and I just don't feel that there's that same buzz around the end of this season towards the start of the next season in F1. I just don't. There isn't that much movement happening around the teams, and it just doesn't excite me as much as it did.
I think the issue is that when Rosberg left, there was a big excitement because that was the world champion who had left. And it was kind of like, who's going to take that? We all thought it would be Hamilton, but then obviously you had Vettel in this new Ferrari car. You had this super team, which Ferrari had essentially made. And due to technical issues with the car, that ended 5 races before this one, essentially. You know, Hamilton had already practically guaranteed the title. It would have took something horrible to have happened for Hamilton to have lost it now. And I think, really, this is why the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, it was mainly just like a run-out. For a lot of people here, it was just, let's just show our face, kind of celebrate, and let's just say this is the end of the F1 season, on to the next one. A lot of these drivers will be thinking that. They'll be thinking, right, what are we going to do next? Am I going to stay at the constructors team which I want to be at? There's been talks of maybe a couple of them wanting to leave. I think that Alonso is always thrown up in the air. I think he's just now announced that he's staying with McLaren. Whether that's good or not, you can take it with a grain of salt, but I think It's been a transitional year, though. I think you have a look at this, you think Hamilton and Vettel, you expect there, and probably Raikkonen. But you've got Bottas, you've got Verstappen still around those, and I have to point out to this guy, but Perez for Force India, absolutely unbelievable. In terms of overachieving, I'd put him as the second best overachiever. For me, the people who did best in this F1 were Bottas, in terms of who exceeded expectations, Bottas, Perez, and then probably Ricciardo. Perez to finish 7th in a Force India car it's masterful. It really is, because there are better drivers who I thought were better drivers in there, which definitely I think should have finished above him.
You mentioned next season. Obviously, this was a transitional year for many of not just the teams but also the drivers. We've got a lot of young people, and we did mention that last year. We all had a sort of plump for who we thought would break through the best, especially the likes of Ocon, Perez. Particularly Lance Stroll in his debut season. He finished 12th in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I said Verline, who finished 18th with 5 points. So it wasn't the greatest. Wasn't the greatest pick. I thought. Thing is though, he's in a Sauber. I mean, what more could I really say, to be fair? But he's in a one who could possibly. There are rumours of maybe him going up to Ferrari eventually, but I think he'd need to perform better if he wants to do that. It's
a long road to get to Ferrari, and they're all still young. They've all got plenty of time. So I think if you were to plump for, we'll start off by saying, who do you think will win next year's the Constructors' Championship?
See, it's difficult because there's obviously, I haven't seen it yet, but I know that there's things they're going to be doing changes with the car. I don't know if the rules are out. I haven't really paid too much attention to that. But obviously that always plays a play. They always edit something to do with the car anyway. And I think there's actually talks of Ferrari wanting to pull out after 2018 because of recent changes. Now, I don't know the exact details, but I know that there's this dispute with Ferrari and F1 about recent changes which happening with the car. I think considering the issues which they've had with this car this year, it feels a bit like a power play, which they're trying to do, because Ferrari is... It's like if, when Barcelona have been complaining about the Champions League, where there was that whole thing about it's unfair for Champions League. And what they did is UEFA changed it, didn't they? They've changed the system because bigger clubs were arguing that they weren't getting fairly represented. It feels a lot more like what Ferrari are doing here with F1. They're basically saying, we want this change. And I think they're such a big organisation, they're going to change it. In terms of who I think is going to win, you can't look past Hamilton. As I love Vettel. I think Vettel's a great driver, and on his day I think Vettel is a better driver than Hamilton. It's controversial, but I believe he is. But I would like to see, I think Hamilton win it again. He could come complacent though, but I do think on his day Hamilton will probably win.
So you're going to plump for Mercedes and Hamilton.
I'm
both.
See, I'd like to hope that Red Bull sort out their issues.
See, I think Red Bull have half a chance. I think they've had this year to sort of assess all their problems, and I think they've been working hard in the background to make sure that their car is 100% prepared for the next season. And I think two great racers with Verstappen and Ricciardo that are prepared to take risks and prepared to really go and attack a race. So I think it could be close, but I'm still going to say that Mercedes will have too much.
I think one thing which is interesting is the whole sister club system. That is definitely played into play this year. You look at the list, and just if you don't know, like some clubs like Mercedes and Ferrari own other teams. They have like small shares in other teams as well, and generally they will use them as feeder to get the up and coming drivers and give them a chance. Mercedes this year, is this a bit too far? I just want to point this out. Hamilton obviously Mercedes, Bottas Mercedes, first and third. Then you had Perez in Force India Mercedes, 7th. Ocon in Force India Mercedes, 8th. And then you also had Williams Mercedes, Massa in 11th, and Stroll, Williams Mercedes in 12th. That's 6, technically, Mercedes cars in the top 12. Is that too much?
Yeah, but you've got to look at it in that they're not really the same combination of, and I think it's a good. I think you can actually compare it a little bit to how Chelsea loan out their players. I think it's quite similar, but I think it's just smart business for Mercedes. I think look at Lance Stroll, obviously a rookie season, and he could go on to join. People are touting him for Ferrari, so why not Mercedes, seeing as it's a feeder club? So
yeah, but at the end of the day, will he not be able to go to Ferrari because he's currently at a Mercedes? Like, they're not going to want to sell him to a Ferrari. He's going to have to wait until his contract goes down, and that could, not be beneficial for him in the end. The fact that he's kind of been put into this Mercedes thing, and even though he's done absolutely great, he's been unbelievable to finish 12th in his rookie season, he is arguably the 6th best Mercedes drivers according to this Constructors' Championship. Which, that says a lot, It's like you're the 6th striker in a football team. Are you really going to ever get a chance? Look at Tammy Abraham,
He's getting a chance.
He's getting a chance, yeah.
Well, football is later. We'll come round to that in a bit. But to move on then, just very quickly, and for one, we're going to do this again. We're going to predict one driver, to kind of break the mold. So if we consider that this top 5, if you like, has been established, and that obviously you've got Hamilton, Vettel, Bottas, Raikkonen, Ricciardo. I wouldn't even put Ricciardo in the top 5. Despite him being 5th, I'd still think that Verstappen is... All right, we'll say we've got the top 6. We've got the top 6 there. Is there anyone you can see, A, breaking that mould, or B, getting into around Perez in 7th?
I mean, the only one which really comes to mind is someone like Hülkenberg. In a Renault, I think for a car which is a middle-of-the-pack car, to finish 10th has been absolutely great. And his team partner finished 17th.
Yeah, Julian Palmer.
Yeah, it shows really how good of a driver he is. If they can maybe increase that car then, I think he could possibly... I'm not going to say he's going to break into the top 6, but he could easily go with the likes of Perez and Ocon and Sainz, really. I think he's definitely got a chance to be along that thing. However, there is a big gap. Perez in 7th, 100 points, then Hülkenberg in 10th with 43. So there's already a gap in terms of like the car quality, but I think if they can improve the car, Renault, for a debut season for them, for Renault in general, this is their first season in the Constructors' Championship, in the new form of Renault. Back in. I think they actually look at this and think, we weren't the worst team there. They really weren't.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a 10th place finish, so
yeah, exactly.
They've got driver quality, and they've got a car that can compete with the teams around them. So I think Renault will look at it as a successful season. Obviously, we're going to point out, I think, 2 people that obviously didn't have a very successful year at all. Daniel Kvyat, horrible year, finishing in 19th with 5 points. He'll be disappointed by that, won't he?
Yeah. I think especially if you look at like Van der Rohe, especially to be fair, that McLaren car was horrible. Alonso even came out and said it's horrible. There's that whole thing about Alonso staying now, which I've said I can't believe that he's actually staying at McLaren, a once great constructors team, and to be fair, I think everybody should look at that car and think we should be doing better than that McLaren Honda team. We really should do, and I think Verline is another one who disappointed me. I said, I actually tipped him to do really, really well. It was in the Sauber, which is owned by Ferrari. So I would have thought, I honestly thought that all the Ferrari's cars were going to be doing really good. And to be fair, just in general, Ferrari disappointed. You have Haas, with Grosjean and Magnussen, 13th, 14th. They're two drivers who, again, I don't think should be 13th, 14th. I would have put, especially Grosjean, somewhere in that top 10. When he was doing it at Lotus, it was great with Lotus when it was Raikkonen and Grosjean. And now he's just seemed to have dropped off, and it's a shame.
But again, that's obviously not taking anything away from the performance from Force India this season.
Oh, absolutely no. You look at Force India and you thought they've took that, and Perez and Ocon are, honestly, two drivers at the beginning of that season. I would have thought, 10th, maybe 10th to 14th, something like that. They've drove very well, and at the end of the day, you get what you're given, and some drivers, can have a great car and can't still perform with it. You look at, you can even look at, say, Raikkonen. In that Ferrari car, despite the issues with that car it was a top 3 car, I would have said, and he got lucky to get 4th. So you really cannot, with Force India, I thought they were absolutely great, and the way they drove was perfect. They played smart, they played safe, and they played to get that top 10 finish, which is what they needed to do.
This is Pulse Radio.
Welcome back to Sportitude here on Pulse Radio with me, Roger Mottram, and Tom Daniels. We're going to do some news in brief now. We're going to have some NFL. We'll do some NFL quickly. Have a rundown of some of the major results. So we'll start off with Tom Daniels' team.
I mean, it's all about the Steelers, isn't it?
9 and 2,
top of the division, aren't we? I think we're joined with the Eagles as well in the.
Yeah, joint with the Philadelphia Eagles. So it was a good. It was not a convincing win, was it?
I mean, it was the exact same in the last game, I believe, against I think it was the Colts, and we won it on a kick. The Packers have not been great. They really have not been great going into this season, but it was another kick. I think it was a 51-yard kick, which ended up winning it, and it was absolutely unbelievable. But you know what? It's all about Roethlisberger and Brown. That connection is like, in football terms, Ericsson to Messi or something, something along those lines. Just someone who's a great passer on the ball, or a great thrower on the ball at this rate. And
you can tell we're bagging this a little bit.
No, I like NFL. I've always liked NFL for the past 3-4 months. Obviously.
I actually have to admit that when I came to uni, I really didn't like NFL. It was something I just thought I would never be interested in, but my opinion of it has been changed. I've managed to pick a team.
Hey, you're a Dolphins fan, aren't you?
I am now a Dolphins fan, and unfortunately things haven't been great for the Miami Dolphins. We have, I say we, and we're 4-7, and we lost 35-17. Tom Brady, a famous name in NFL.
I've never heard of him, mate. Never heard of him.
4 touchdowns for the Patriots. So unfortunately, the Dolphins lost, and I think they're pretty mid-table now.
Well, the Dolphins. Obviously, I remember last season they were performing pretty well, and there was a bit of hype around the Dolphins, and then they are, I believe, the nation's best second team to support. They're a team which I was an unofficial Dolphins fan for 2 years purely because I just liked the kit. Honestly, it was something so simple as that. I liked that light blue Dolphins kit. I think it's beautiful. But I decided to join in on the Steelers before this season and. It's not look back. See, I think it's just me. I went from an unofficial Dolphins fan to an official Steelers fan, and now they're 9-2. Top of the division.
I basically picked between my two favourite animals that were in a franchise. So it was between the Dolphins and the Jaguars, and I thought I've been to Miami, so I've got to support my home team.
Hey, as long as it's not the Browns, I think you're okay. To be fair.
So we'll just have a little rundown, I think, then of the results. So the Vikings beat the Lions by 30 points to 23. Chargers beat the Cowboys, thrashed them 28-6. Redskins beat the Giants 20-10. Bengals obviously beat the Browns. Horrific season again for the Browns, 30-16. Jets lost to the Panthers 35-27. Colts were beaten by the Titans 20-16, so another close game. Atlanta Falcons, obviously Super Bowl winners last year.
Yeah.
They won 34-20 against the Buccaneers. Obviously the Patriots beat the Dolphins. The Eagles beat the Bears 31-3. Absolutely hammered the Bears, the Eagles there. Chiefs lost out to the Bills 16-10. 49ers 13, Seahawks 24. Oklahoma Raiders 21, Broncos 14. Rams 26, Saints 20, another close game. And then the Cardinals and the Jaguars, 3 points in that one as well, 27-24. Talked about the Steelers and the Packers, 31-28. And then tomorrow, 1:30 UK time, the Ravens against the Texans.
I mean, if you're into your NFL, that's definitely one which is it's not one of those games which if you want to introduce NFL to someone, you definitely don't show them to the Ravens and the Texans, do you? You show them you used to show them the Packers, but you show them the Steelers, probably show them the Rams as well. They're an entertaining team, but stay away from
show them the Steelers.
Yeah, of course you show them the Steelers. You don't show them the Dolphins,
Yeah, you don't show them the Dolphins, to be fair. But that's a little... I like NFL because it's something that switches around every season. You can never be a glory hunter with NFL.
It's the draft season, isn't it? It's because of the draft that anybody can literally go anywhere. And obviously with the way that the division works... it's a lottery as well, because sometimes you play a team which you've not played for about 3 years just because the schedule system works, and that could actually work in your favour or work against you. It depends. I think there's a strategy behind it as well, which is quite good.
Anyway, moving on then away from American sports and to something we're a little bit more familiar with, closer to home then. Tom, you have some boxing news?
Yeah, I have a couple of boxing pieces as we were scrolling to. We've got to talk about Dillian Whyte. I mean, he's calling out somebody else again. He's waiting to find out if Lucas Brown will be his next opponent as he warms up for an unexpected title fight in 2018. I say unexpected. It's an expected one, but let's be honest. Whyte is one of those guys who is calling everybody out under the sun. He said to Bellew, look, I'll fight you in December. When Hay pulled out, Bellew was like, nah, I don't really want to fight someone like that early. He's looking for that break. He's only lost one. He's lost one to Joshua, and then ever since then it seems that he's been regarded as a B-class boxer. And I'm not saying he is, but I just think that's the way that the opinion of him is starting to be formed around other boxers. I think he's a great fighter, and I think eventually, if there is going to be a world title he's going for, it's going to be Joseph Parker. I think everybody wants to go for Joseph Parker right now. No offence to him, but out of the 3 world champions, he's definitely the one which has got a target on his head. Bellew's already said it. Whyte has said it. And I think he wants to face Brown because he feels like that will be the one which will propel him to getting Parker. There was a whole talk of Whyte and Bellew, but it looks like that's now not going to happen. Depends on what Hay's doing. I think, to be fair, the likelihood for me is that it's going to be Bellew and probably Parker in May. That's what the rumours are circulating around.
It's a decent lineup though for May. Anyway, moving on then. Have we got any UFC news? Do you want to briefly?
We've got a couple more boxing pieces.
Couple more?
Yeah, just like a couple more. Manny Pacquiao has challenged Conor McGregor to a real boxing match.
Wow.
That's what he said after the UFC star's defeat to Floyd Mayweather. So, you know what? It's a little bit of UFC, it's a little bit of boxing, but yeah, Manny Pacquiao. Never really been the same fighter since that loss to Mayweather. Probably, I looked up to Pacquiao a lot. He's one of the best boxers I think to have graced the ring. But there's a time where you've got to kind of say, look, this is it. And after that Mayweather fight, I think that was it. He did retire actually, I think briefly. Came back, he won the world title, and then he lost to Horn. And ever since then, he's not been the same. And I think he's just looking for that one last payout. I think everybody would see it.
Yeah, it just screams, I want some more money, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's unfortunate. It really is.
It's not even something that I think would be a good watch or even interesting. I think there would be a lot of hype around it, but ultimately for nothing. It's not a fight that either of them realistically would have liked to take a year ago. A year ago, neither of them saw that as an option, and I think... Just let it go.
It's just one last fight, I think, for them. Basically, I think Pacquiao just wants to end it on a win. Yeah. And, he thinks that probably Conor McGregor is the viable option for him to get a win and to make a lot of money off it, which is fair enough. Going on to actual UFC, though, and expect Michael Bisping. I mean, we all know that he lost to Kevin Gallstrom. If you don't, then I would highly watch the video. It is horrific.
Thumping, isn't it?
It is a thumping. No offence to him. It was 21 days notice. I believe it was Anderson Silva who pulled out because I think it was a drugs test. Was it doping?
Drugs test. Yeah.
So in UFC 217, he went to Shanghai and he lost to Kallstrom, which I think a lot of people were expecting. I know a couple of people were thinking maybe Bisping was going to go out there, but I think the big story, though, is that he says he has no plans to retire. There's that whole rumour that when the UFC comes next year into London, that is where he wants his last fight. I think it feels like he kind of did Dana White a bit of a favour in this UFC Shanghai one. I don't think it was ever going to be one which he was wanting to do, but maybe it was a bit like, I'll do this for you if you can maybe, give me something in UFC London, maybe a semi-main event or even a main event spot, because he's such a local, hero in UFC in terms of being around London. And then a last one, a little one about athletics. Justin Gatlin has he believes that Usain Bolt might decide to come out of retirement and compete in the Tokyo Olympic Games in 2020.
I can see Bolt doing that. I think Gatlin is a great point there. I don't think Bolt quite finished it on he obviously he got 2 goals, didn't he? But he wanted another triple.
Yes.
And I think
he didn't get the. I think he did the triple.
Yeah,
he wanted the quad triple.
Yeah. So I think he'd like to finish it on that again. He's just a superhuman athlete. He's just incredible. But anyway, we digress. I'll move on. Some little more news and brief then. Romelu Lukaku will not face any further punishment for his alleged double kick out during Manchester United's 1-0 victory over Brighton. And just in the last couple of hours, AC Milan have sacked their manager after they failed to beat Torino at home. And Gennaro Gattuso is the man they've brought in.
Isn't he?
Yeah, obviously he's a great player, obviously, but never quite proved himself as a manager. I think he managed Sion for a little bit in Serie C.
Yeah, I believe so.
For a bit, so it'll be interesting to see how he does. Anyway, we've prolonged this long enough. We've got to talk about...
Prolong what? Isn't it time for a break? Or?
We have got to talk about cricket. We have got to... It's the Ashes. It comes around often. Not often.
Once a year? Is it once a year?
I couldn't tell you.
Once every 4 years?
I thought it was 4 years.
Is it 4 years?
I thought it was 4 years. Anyway, the Ashes is ongoing, and I do know that it's in Australia at the minute.
We're going to try.
And I also know that Australia won the first test by 10 wickets, which is an absolute battering. They came out in the last innings needing only 56 runs to win the first test. And I can tell you that David Warner and Cameron Bancroft got an unbroken 173, eclipsing the target on their own that England set, and they had 2 sessions to spare. So David Warner was 87 not out and Bancroft was 82. So a very impressive performance from Australia, very unimpressive from England.
I mean, I think you look at it like this, and despite me not knowing a lot about cricket, the fact that the hosts got 56 runs in an hour, for me, doesn't scream like England did the greatest. It's a mental game. I think you look at it, and while is it 3 tests or is it a 5? Is it a 5 test or
it's 5 tests?
Is it 5 tests? Yeah. So obviously losing the first one might not be the worst thing in the world, but I think it's how they lost it. They lost it with 10 wickets. They lost it, in the first hour and a half, 2 hours. It seems like, and mentally that could be a problem, because then you look at it and think, if they had lost and it was close, then maybe think, okay, maybe the second day we can come back. What they need to do is they need to try and do the exact same that Australia did to them in the second test, and then it kind of like look, we can also dominate you as well.
Yeah, they've got to bounce back. I'm not sure on this, but I think Alistair Cook went out for two runs, and as the opening batsman for England, that's not good enough. Captain Joe Root again didn't do enough. I think he's an all-rounder, but I think he's mainly focused on batting. I think that's where his strongest aspect is. I know that he's loved by the English that follow cricket, but apart from that, couldn't tell you anything else about the Ashes. But we'll get behind England. We'll say, come on.
I think it's going to be very, 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 very problematic for England. I was just having a look at a little stat before we were on air, and it says that England have had a 6 successive test defeat in Australia following the 5-0 whitewash in 2013-2014, which was the last time, obviously, it was in Australia. So that is not the greatest of stat, the fact that they are on 6-0 in test results and a 5-0 wash last time in what I would say, in 2013-2014, I actually was watching a little bit of cricket, and for me, I didn't think we had the worst team. In this one, I think there's a few notable absentees which have come out here, and so it's a weaker England cricket side, in my opinion, and it looks like, hopefully it doesn't, but it looks like it could be another 5-0.
See, I would argue against that, because I think I've heard a lot of these names that are in this squad, and I think they're very, very capable cricketers, and I think that England should be definitely looking to win the Ashes, as they always should. But
But the biggest miss is Ben Stokes.
I think they've got to come back in, even in his absence. They've got to come back in. They've got a lot of good batsmen, and I think they've got to try and put the last result out of their mind and come out and just. It's got to be like an Istanbul moment. They've got to just come back fighting, and they've got to show what they're made of.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, but I just find it funny that one of our biggest names, basically is not in because of a fight in what happened in Bristol, a nightclub, which... it's typical. It's a typical Englishman issue.
That's why I don't follow cricket. Obviously, it's just not a gentleman's game, is it? It's, just...
it's not like tennis.
No, it's not like tennis at all.
I've heard Kyrgios is a gentleman on the court. Honestly,
we'll not get into that again. Welcome back to Sportitude with me, Roger Mottram, and Tom Daniels. We're going to do some football now, back on more comfortable soil, home grounds now. We can talk about this. We don't even need to blag it.
Yeah, we're okay. I think we can do well.
I want to start off. We'll start off obviously in the Premier League, but a major result: Watford beating Newcastle in Newcastle by 3-0. Watford have scored at least 2 goals in every away match in the Premier League this season.
Have they got one of the best away forms in the Premier League then?
They have, yeah.
Oh, that is... I mean, firstly, yeah, you look at this and you think, against Newcastle, you do kind of have to think that Watford, to be fair, they've actually not been in that good form, have they?
Not recently,
as of recent.
They're still
against Newcastle, you expect them
Yeah.
to win. But, you look at Andre Gray, Will Hughes has been now starting to come into his own. I think he was okay at the beginning of the season, but now he's started to fully get into that squad. I think he's really starting to develop as a player, more and become a Premier League midfielder, which I thought he was at Derby anyway. And Andre Gray given a chance now. He's now coming to his own again. And Richarlison, little less. Isn't the rumours of him getting a transfer to China in January or something?
I haven't heard anything about that, but what I will say is that he isn't the finished product yet. He's a rough diamond at the minute, but he is still a diamond. I think he's missed a lot of chances, and he's had a nearly pass, but he's always been in and around the goal. He's getting in the right places, and he's a real threat, and it looks like a quality signing from Watford.
I mean, I do have to give credit a little bit to Newcastle, despite it being a 3-0 loss. The scoreline, I would say, flattered.
It didn't.
Well, I think it did. Yeah,
Newcastle were very poor. On Saturday, Newcastle were very poor, but in general, they've had a good season.
See, for me, I felt like, you look at it, you thought one of them was an own goal from DeAndre Yedlin, for one. An own goal's happened.
Yedlin was absolutely terrible,
yeah,
by the
but
way. He's
still, I still think that, I feel like I'm a Newcastle fan being like this, defending them, but I still feel like whenever your team scores an own goal, I think it is a shame. And it is a worry. And to be fair, you look at kind of the statistics, and I did see glimpses of the game, so I don't know the full 90 minutes. But, Newcastle had 2 shots on target, 5 shots off target, where, Watford had 4 shots on target and scored 3 goals.
Watford were absolutely dominant all game, I can tell you that. And what I will say, I think Newcastle have been affected by the off-the-field matters. They've lost their last 4 games in the Premier League, and they're really starting to slide. They need this takeover to happen, and they need it to happen fast. Because if they don't start investing some money in January, then they could be on a dangerous slope down.
And Rafa could end up leaving. Rafa's at that position where he could be like, I'm sick of this. There's a team called Everton which are currently struggling, and maybe if he wants to do that, it would be. I mean, imagine if that had happened. If he goes to Everton, the former Liverpool man won the Champions League with Liverpool. Joins Everton. No, it can't happen. I'm not even going to say that. I think it's blasphemy saying stuff like that.
But you've brought up Everton. We'll have a little discussion. How bad are they at the minute?
I mean, whenever you concede 4 against Southampton, I think you've got to start looking at yourself and thinking something has definitely changed. Something definitely needs sorting out. When you got Charlie Austin scoring 2 goals as well, I think
Charlie
you need to
Austin's
look at
record in the Premier League is it's almost a goal every other game.
Yeah, it's because he doesn't play that many games.
He still scores goals.
Yeah, but the thing is, the issue which I have with Charlie Austin, I've heard this stat before, but Charlie Austin is a guy who will score 3 goals in one game, then not score for 2 games. In this game, he's done practically nothing, in this season. Then he comes on, scores 2 goals, and it's like that's where that statistic comes from.
But he hasn't been being played as much at Southampton, and they've had a real goal score. No one in Southampton can say they've done well in terms of scoring goals this season.
Yeah, no, it's very much true. I think hopefully they can sort something out. And it's nice to see Sigurdsson on the score sheet. It's nice to know that he's still an Everton player.
I will have to give it to him. I think that goal is top 5 of the goals I've seen this season. It was the way it went into the back of the net was just absolutely beautiful.
But that's what I mean. When you see goals like that, you think, why can't he do that every game? Or even it was a hard shot. You can't luckily get a shot like that and make it go in. You have to have skill. You have to have the ability to do stuff like that. And so it makes me think, why is he not doing that on a regular basis? And Everton are in the relegation zone, aren't they?
No.
Are they not in the relegation zone?
They're 16th.
After the horrific run of games they're doing, I think they're just hoping for a manager to come in. If you're a manager, though, right now, do you want to see... Do you want to be at
the
Everton?
Job. I wouldn't take the Everton job, especially the people that were you're trying to get in. Marco Silva was talked about at Watford. Absolutely great job. I don't know why anyone would leave Watford, but even more, Burnley, Sean Dyche. Why would you leave Burnley? They're trying to get in the Champions League at the minute.
There are 100 reasons why you'd leave Burnley, but
without bias, Tom.
Well, without bias, then there are no reasons why you'd leave Burnley. But a little bit less said that. I mean, do you want to go into that game, Arsenal-Burnley?
I haven't seen it, so personally, no, I don't.
Well, apparently there was a penalty decision which was very controversial.
Yeah, I've heard it was controversial, but I haven't actually seen it myself, so I'm not going to make a comment.
I think I actively seek out never to watch a Burnley game, but when all I can say from a totally non-biased point of view that when Alexis Sanchez popped up on my screen that he'd scored a goal, I was jumping for joy, to say the least. But again, let's actually be in a non-bias and all serious aside, though. Burnley, whatever happens now with Burnley, I think you can look at this and think, as long as they don't get relegated, it's a brilliant season for them overall, isn't it? And they don't look like a side which will get relegated. They look like a top 10 side, that worries me.
The thing that surprises me the most is that at no point do Burnley look like they're going to tail off. They look like they're complete and the finished article. They don't look like they're going to come unstuck against the likes of Stoke or West Brom that are down there, or someone mid-table that's going to challenge them. And I think what Sean Dyche has done at Burnley is just absolutely ridiculous.
And they've got Nick Pope in net. Because obviously with this issue with Heaton and what's been going on there, it's crazy. You look at this squad, and I'm not right. This is not jumping the gun or anything. But you look at when Leicester won the Premier League and you think, how can a team like that function? And Leicester obviously were a mad case. They managed to win the Premier League, but it's a very similar thing which is happening with Burnley, where I look at that squad, I look at Tarkowski. I believe, wasn't he at Leicester briefly?
I think so, yeah.
I think he was a centre-back for Leicester briefly, and he just absolutely did nothing. Lowton is another one. Even Jack Cork, really, at Swansea, didn't take the world by storm. These players are coming together under Sean Dyche's system, and they are working. And what is happening right now is they have a chance of getting into the Europa League above teams like Liverpool, who, Liverpool are up and down. We'll say that.
We'll move on then from the Premier League. We'll go. I'd like to cover. I know that you want to do this as well. There was a derby in Germany. I can't remember the name of the derby, but it was Dortmund against Schalke. 25 minutes is all it took for Borussia Dortmund to race into a 4-0 lead. What happened?
Well, it was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, there are comebacks in football. You can even look at last week. On Tuesday, we unfortunately didn't manage to cover the game, but with Seville-Liverpool, Liverpool were 3-0 up, and then Seville managed to do what Seville seemed to do a lot of times against Liverpool and come back and get a miraculous result. But this was something else because it was at Dortmund. It was at Dortmund's ground, and Aubameyang scored, then a Stambouli on goal made it 2-0. Goetze scored, Guerrero scored, and you look at it and you think they've conceded an own goal. Everything is going in Dortmund's favour, and then straight after, in 4 minutes, in the 61st, 65th, 4-2, Aubameyang gets sent off, and then you start thinking, surely not. And Calgary, 86th minute, and then in the 90th minute, I actually haven't seen the goal, but I'm guessing it's from a corner, because now
it's got to be a set piece,
it
doesn't it?
Has to be, because it's Conor Pianka getting the assist. Naldo in the 90th minute, though, makes it 4-4. One of my mates who I live with right now is a Schalke fan, because he was born and brought up in Germany, And I wasn't there, but I wish I could have seen his reaction. He was screaming, he said he could not believe it. He said he switched his phone off at 4-0, checked it at full time and realised it was 4-all. But this means so much more than just a great game. Schalke are arguably the second best team in Germany, and this can kind of prove it.
Well, it obviously it does mean so much more than just the game. Not only is it one of the fiercest derbies in Germany, but also with Schalke second in the division, Borussia Dortmund fifth, but there's only 3 points separating them, at least, well, there is now. So obviously if Dortmund had beaten Schalke, they would have overtaken them and gone above them in the league. And that comeback and that fighting spirit to stop Dortmund winning, but also to stop them going ahead of them in the league. It's just something that doesn't happen all that often in football, but it is absolutely great to watch.
And also, what it would also be great for is Leipzig and Mönchengladbach, because obviously they're two teams as well which are wanting to get that second spot. I mean, the unfortunate thing with the Bundesliga, as we talked about this, is that Bayern are the winners. They are, unfortunately, spoiler, Bayern are probably going to win the German division, but there's a lot of competition for that second spot. Right now, Leipzig, I think, overtook Schalke and are now into second because of that. Leipzig would love that. I think a draw was great for Leipzig and Mönchengladbach, and to be fair, even Schalke would take a draw after what happened. What's happening with Aubameyang, though? It's quickly, is he leaving? I think, to be fair, his heart's not in it anymore.
No, I would agree. I think when the time is right, he's been at Dortmund a long time, and it's.
Would you take a player like that, though? A player who, let's be honest, this season, if you just go off how he has been this season, for me, he doesn't merit a top club.
But I think that's
his attitude sucks.
I think sometimes it takes a change of location, a change of scene for a player's attitude to change and for his form to come back. You see it so many times when a player leaves a club, he isn't happy at a club, he leaves and he suddenly finds a new home and he hits form, his attitude come back. And I think that is something that might happen. I'm not saying it will. I think it might happen with Aubameyang, but it depends where he goes. I'm
seeing inklings of Balotelli syndrome, where I think what happened with Balotelli, he was the world-class footballer. Not a world-class footballer, but he had the potential to be a world-class footballer. And people kept saying, well, his attitude doesn't suit England, so, send him to Italy. Then his attitude didn't suit Italy, so they sent him to France. And now, with how, obviously, with how Nice are doing, currently actually doing shocking, aren't they?
5-0 at home to Lyon.
He's not got the attitude for French football as well. So is it just an attitude problem?
Balotelli isn't. Balotelli is an exceptional case. He's like Kyrgios as well. He's never going to find somewhere where his attitude suits because he's a talented footballer, but mentally he just isn't there. And I just think that's an immaturity. I think Aubameyang has more about him in terms of the maturity that he has, but I don't think China. If you move to China, I just think that says something about your personality as a footballer.
No, I could see someone like Tevez, even though Tevez is doing absolutely terrible in China. That's a whole story in itself. But someone like Tevez coming to the end of his career, thinking, I'm going to make loads of money. Yeah, that's fine. For me, you're okay doing that. Someone, say, like Tyson, though, on the other hand, who rejected Liverpool to go to China, for me, that says you've done it for the money, you haven't done it for the passion.
And the thing, I think if you're, especially with the likes of Aubameyang, he's in the prime of his career at the minute. He's been on fire in the last couple of seasons scoring goals. Why would you not, if you're going to move, why would it not be to a team that you can try and win the Champions League, arguably the most coveted trophy in football?
But is there any clubs which will have him? Like, seriously, I look at Real Madrid and I think that was the big rumour of Aubameyang, Real Madrid, because with Benzema, there's always rumours with Benzema leaving, but I honestly can't see. I think Benzema's better than Aubameyang right now.
I think if you look at the clubs that would need a striker, I'd say the likes of, especially over the summer, every club is looking for a striker over summer. I think Juventus are playing Dybala in behind the striker, so I think that there's a space for him there.
Yeah, but Mandzukic is doing just a good enough job.
Plays in the wing.
No, Mandzukic played up front last game.
But he
generally goals
this season has been playing on the wing for Juventus.
Yeah, but they got Higuain as well. They don't need another striker.
There are teams that are looking for a striker across Europe. I think they're just Napoli. They haven't got an out and out striker.
Yeah, but they're currently top of Serie A. So do they really want to change it?
I'm just saying there are teams in the Champions League that would bite your hand off to sign Aubameyang.
The only one I can think of, Arsenal won't do it because of the Lacazette.
Yeah, no, over summer they could have.
The only one I would think of is someone like Bayern Munich if they're wanting to have competition for Lewandowski. Will Dortmund want to sell him to Bayern Munich? The chances are absolutely no. I think they'll rather take an offer from China than selling to Bayern Munich.
Well, historically, it's not really made a difference to them, has it?
It hasn't, to be fair, but I don't know, especially now. the way things are going, I can't see Aubameyang going to Dortmund, to going to Bayern Munich. But I also can't see him staying. I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves in January. I really won't.
Anyway, moving on then. I know we're going to go gradually down the league, so I just want to mention Wolves. Do you think it's fair that they've essentially bought the Championship this season?
It's an issue, isn't it? I wish I could say no, but it's really not been good for Wolves. I think they've definitely. Well, it's not been good. It's been good for Wolves. It's not been good for the Championship. I feel like it's been a bit worrying. I feel like they're the better team. They're clearly the better team. And to be fair, though, I hope that they finish first, qualify, and then do good in the Premier League. That team, with the money and the funds they've got now, and this Portuguese, kind of little Portuguese C team which they're starting to build, I think is brilliant.
I think it's one of those teams where I don't think it's a bad thing for the Championship. I think it increases the quality of the football that's being played in the Championship, but also Sheffield United are 4 points behind them. And they only got promoted last season, so there's
Billy Sharp, isn't it? Billy Sharp.
There are teams that are keeping up. There are teams that are keeping up with them, and even Sheffield United. What a job they've done, by the way, there. But I don't think it's a bad thing for the Championship. I think the money that's gone into the Championship recently, but even before Wolves, was ridiculous. The likes of Fulham signing Ross McCormack for 15 million. And there's crazy money flying about. So
even when Jordan Rhodes left Huddersfield to join Blackburn, that was 7 million at that time. I believe that might have actually been our record transfer as well, and that was in the Championship which we made. And you look at a team like Cardiff as well. And last season, who would have said that Cardiff would be where they were this season? I think it's absolutely unbelievable. And the manager's got to get a bit of credit. I think is it still Neil Warnock who's manager of Cardiff? To be fair, I'd be surprised if it isn't, unless he left at the beginning of the season.
I think it is. Yeah, I think that is right. He's definitely a manager of a Championship club, because he always is. But I'm pretty sure he's managing Cardiff.
Yeah, we'll have to go with that. I'm gonna quickly have a look, Roger. If you have a look at the other teams, while I want to get this. Yeah, it is Neil Warnock, because he did unbelievable for them at the beginning of the season. I didn't know if he'd stayed on. He has stayed on, and now the second Cardiff City, which is a team which with a lot of people I've seen in the a lot of people I've seen in the Premier League before. But if you've followed Championship football, they were definitely the last couple of seasons
they've been down. They've been down there. And another one that's doing exceptionally well, Bristol City. They were expected to go down. They're in a real relegation battle this season, but they're in fifth, and they've only lost one in the last 6 games. So.
Yeah, the loss of Tammy Abraham was definitely something which a lot of people were thinking of. I ended up watching the game against Hull this weekend.
Another one of the better comebacks of the week,
and it was something else. It was obviously I was doing work for Hull, so it wasn't a very happy time for people involved in the stadium, but it was an unbelievable comeback. But Bristol honestly didn't play that well in that game, but that's the sign of a team which can do well in a playoff system. I think if you can play bad and still score 3 goals and still come back like that, I think they are one of the deadliest teams, I'd say, in that playoff place. You look at those 4 teams in the playoffs, though: Sheffield United, Aston Villa, Bristol and Derby. And even with Derby, I would only have said Aston Villa were the one which I would have guaranteed in that playoffs.
Yeah, and solely in the playoffs. I think if Wolves slipped down.
Yeah. I think Wolves were always going to be the favourites, but I didn't expect Cardiff in second. I expected someone like Middlesbrough, who, to be fair, are 7th. Someone like Fulham.
I expected Fulham to be doing a lot better than they are this season, but I think Nottingham Forest, Leeds United, they're teams that have been in and around the playoffs. Not necessarily last year in the case of Nottingham Forest, but they're teams that are expected to challenge.
And Hull are 20th.
Yeah,
4 points off
Sunderland as well.
Sunderland at bottom. Yeah,
Not anymore.
No, Sunderland aren't. They won, didn't they?
Yeah.
Sunderland, Burton, and Bolton. I know, and Birmingham are obviously what happened last season. Birmingham, personally, I think Birmingham should have gone down and Blackburn should have stayed up. But I think that's just that's a biased thing. But
we'll have one last word before we go. One last word. We'll drop down all the way into League 2.
League 2?
You can have, or League 1, sorry, and you can have a quick word on Blackburn before we go.
Well, let's be honest, we're doing absolutely average, I'd say, for what we should be doing. We're currently 5th. We've got a 15 goal difference, played 18 games. We're 2 games above near enough everybody else. And Charlie Mulgrew, what a guy. I mean, I think we'll be up, hopefully. I mean, Well, we'll have to see. I hope so.
Will Shrewsbury and Scunthorpe, will they stay up there? Will they?
I think Wigan probably going to get promoted. Shrewsbury, no. I don't see Shrewsbury. I can see Bradford squeaking in. I don't want to play Portsmouth. The team I don't want to play in the playoffs is Portsmouth. I like to think, though, that we still have a chance of getting second. I think first might be out of our reach, but we'll have to see how it goes. I think we've got a lot of games in hand over two teams. I think in Bradford and Scunthorpe, third and fourth, we have 2 games in hand on them. But first and second, we have a game in hand on them. So it's because we have, I'm not blagging, but we have too many international players. So when League One clubs play on the international break, we can't, and we have to postpone our matches. So it's the best thing Corey Evans has ever done, I think, to be fair. I think he'd be wishing that he was playing, though, and not with Ireland in that game.
We'll just leave everything that you've just said, the amount of wrong things that you've just said. We'll just end on that. I'm not even going to argue. Anyway, thanks for listening this week. We'll be back next week, and the World Cup draw is on Friday. So in our show next,
we'll have to see who Ireland get, won't we? Northern and Republic.
Yeah, indeed. Right, we'll cover that next week, and we'll have some other sports as well for you.